Mr. Chairman, you're live.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get going. It is 3 o'clock. Go ahead and do a roll call.
Senator Brennan,
Excused.
Senator Furphy,
Here.
Senator Kolb,
Present.
Senator Pappas,
Excused.
Chairman Boner.
Here.
3 present, 2 excused.
All right, first one we got up is House Bill 57. Chairman Brown, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm hoping this can be a fairly simple and expedient bill for you guys. To be honest with you, what this bill came from was interim work. You'll see a bill died over on general file on our side, and it was literally called Space Force Amendments. There's a little more to the story. When we were going through interim work, what was determined from the Department of Defense was there's actually some pretty substantial differences between armed forces and uniformed services and what those differences were. And so when I was still on that committee, I asked about it, and I worked with Heather Jarvis when she was still here, and I said, can you draft me a bill? And this was before the committee had asked for a bill to be drafted. So she started working on it, drafted her bill, and we were working them in tandem. And then ultimately, I just decided to bring this one forward. So instead of just inserting Space Forces and kind of putting a Band-Aid on and changes out uniformed and armed services to make sure that we are basically number one in compliance with federal law with Title 10, but also to make sure that we recognize those members that may not be armed services, but are certainly uniformed services in our state as well. So I'll start walking through the bill pretty quickly, Mr. Chairman. Stop me if you have any questions or something doesn't work. But ultimately what I'm going forward here is Title 8. If you look here, it's just general definitions. And inside the general definitions, you have armed forces and uniformed services. And you see that armed forces means the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Space Force, and Coast Guard. Uniformed services means all of those, plus it's any National Guard, Air Guard, any reserve or auxiliary component thereof. And so that would also be like Civil Air Patrol, anything along those lines. Then we also have the Commissioned Corps of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
Quick question there, Chairman. The Civil Air Patrol, are they an auxiliary of the
Air Force.
National Guard or the Air Force?
The Air Force itself.
Okay, and so does that work with the language we have there? Because it says Army National Guard, Air National Guard, and any reserve or auxiliary component thereof. It seems like it's referencing the National Guard, not active duty.
But if you look up above, Mr. Chairman, what that also incorporates is the armed forces. So anything within the armed forces. And that would be above would be the Air Force.
Okay, so we don't need.
I see what you're saying.
We don't need or auxiliary component with the armed forces.
I don't believe so, Mr. Chairman. I see what you're saying. I don't believe so, but if the committee wanted to do that, I'd be more than happy. And
We can ask Mr. Smith what he thinks too.
Yeah.
And okay, go ahead. Please proceed.
Sure. So, Mr. Chairman, then you have the Commissioned Corps of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. That's also known as NOAA. That is your National Weather Service. Between here and in Wyoming, you have the 2 offices in Riverton and in Cheyenne that would encompass. And then you also have the Commissioned Corps of the Public Health Service. I don't know if we have any health service commission corpsmen here, but we may. Just again, this is formulaic language that comes out of the Department of Defense just to make sure that we're abiding by the same Title 10 information that they have out there. And then any other category or person designated by the President of the United States in the time of war or emergency. And then, Mr. Chairman, what we do from there, and I will just go through these very quickly because all this is conforming amendments, but what I would like the committee to know is what we're changing and where. So the first one is in 1911-103 in the definition section. This is the military member service protections. So this is all those protections provided by the state for our National Guardsmen. Continue all the way through here into, those are all in 1911. And keep going. 1913-102 is Homeland Security. That is on page 8. Flipping through, you see that we basically strike military in all of this. That's really what we're getting rid of and inserting armed forces or uniformed services where appropriate. Down onto page 9, line 21, 1914-106 is the veteran benefits. Think of that as the tuition benefits and a couple of the bills that you guys will be carrying over here on this side here shortly. That's going to be any of the armed services and any of those, in any of the striking of the military that you see there. 1914 is still within that. I don't have 1914. It is still veterans benefits, sorry. Then 22,205 on page 11 at the end is kind of an interesting one. That's domestic relations and the dissolution of marriage. Just an interesting concept that's where we caught that we have a uniformed member of the United States Navy, that just conforming language. So this literally, the reason this bill is so long is we went in and found everywhere that it says the uniformed services or the military, we strike it all and change it. Then going into right below that on page 12, anything that you see with Title 21 is all education. So going from page 12, 13, all of page 12 and all of page 13 is all the military service member that we have in there within the education statutes. On to page 14, Title 23 is game and fish. So we do offer some resident military service members, uniformed armed service members, some discounts on there. So we make sure we cover that. Then on to page 15, you have Title 33, which is licensure. This is pretty big to me. This is something that we've done over the past couple of years, has worked really, really hard to make sure that licensure and compacts and those types of things for spouses, all of that is conforming amendments to make sure that we have armed forces and military forces, uniformed and military, not military, uniformed and armed forces. That is all in Title 33. And then going down to Title 35, which is on page 17, right in the middle, you actually have volunteer firefighter, EMT, search and rescue pension. We actually had a mention in this for any of those that are active uniformed service members. They have to make sure that they have board permission to, or they have board rules to allow for service and participation in that program. Into Title 39 is tax laws. That's all with our Department of Revenue for exemptions on page 17, all the way through 18 and down to the bottom of page 19 where you have Title 42. That is welfare. That is the Medical Welfare Act. Again, just striking out the old language and inserting the new one. And then, Mr. Chairman, this just takes effect July 1st, 2023. It's a very long bill, 20 pages, but it's all conforming amendments. Everything, the meat of the bill is up on the first 2 pages, and I'd stand for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any questions, committee? Senator Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question. I noticed that the Marine Corps, and under definitions, under page 13, line 19, has been put in a place where I just kind of wonder why it's there. Why couldn't it be moved up after Navy or possibly moved in front of Army? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I reserve comment on that one.
This bill's gonna get really weird if we start jockeying and we can have an Air Force amendment or an Army amendment, but. Yeah.
Just want to move that Marines up.
Well, I mean, you know, they're a component of the Navy, right? So,
I do, that's why I'm next to the Navy.
okay.
I settled on next to
But I
Navy.
mean, you should have an actual military service first, right? Just kidding. Just kidding. Any further questions? Okay, and so just quite, I mean, I'm looking here, making sure we're being consistent. So like on page 14, for example, or let me see. Excuse me, page 16, you're striking military service and putting in uniform service. But then say on page 14, you're striking military and inserting armed forces. Is there, are we being consistent? Are we sure we're not making substantive changes and including, say, NOAA, where previously they hadn't been included?
Mr. Chairman, that's a great question, and I appreciate you bringing that up. That is something that I wanted to draw attention to, is it does look like in certain areas that they're commingled, and they're not, right? We want to make sure that our armed forces are getting the armed forces benefits. The uniformed services are not getting the armed forces benefits. And if you look in Title 20 or in Title 33, this is inside the licensure compacts, making sure that we adjust that. So that's why you see uniformed services, is we're bringing those across. But if you go back up, like let's say to the tuition benefits, those are going to be underneath armed services, and you're not going to have that underneath uniformed services. Good catch. Thank you for reminding me on that.
Yeah, it's just, even though it may seem that way, we're not making any actual changes to who qualifies for what or whatever.
Absolutely not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Very good. Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Representative. Any public comment? Do we have anybody online? Nope, okay. Mr. Smith, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize, Chairman Brown. Something that I had forgotten that had come up in looking at this bill, we didn't raise it on the House side. When you look on page 2 in the definitions section, armed forces should include the Guard and the reserves. And uniform services should be all those things, plus the two extra being the NOAA officers and commissioned corps of the health services. This was raised, I think, yesterday by one of my fellow attorneys in the Guard and said, by including the Army National Guard and all down under uniform services, it makes them sound like they're not armed forces, and they should be. So that, and again, I feel bad that this went all the way through the House and we didn't catch it. So essentially, on page 2, lines 20 through 22, really should be up there on line 13 and 14, or just deleted. Because armed forces, the Army National Guard, Air National Guard, the reserves, and even the auxiliary are all part of the armed forces by common federal definition. But by singling them out and putting them under uniform services, it raises that issue. The last thing somebody mentioned to me today was when you read down there on line 22 on page 2, it says auxiliary component thereof of any state. The of any state, auxiliary components are not state, they're federal. So that just reads a little awkwardly. I personally don't know if we care because auxiliaries are what auxiliaries are. But that, so I guess I would suggest to this committee, Mr. Chairman, that either lines 20 through 22 be deleted or that language be added up on line 13 under armed forces.
Okay, so just basically copy and paste it is what you're saying, take it from,
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
all right.
And I missed it.
Well, it's that, Mr. Smith.
I missed it previous to this.
Okay.
So,
Okay, any questions for Mr. Smith? Okay, thank you, sir. Any further public comment? Okay, we have nothing online, so public comment is closed. Committee, what's your pleasure?
Bill,
Moved by Senator Pappas. Any amendments?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
to the point that,
Your microphone.
thank you. To the point that Mr. Smith brought on page 2, my preference would be actually just to delete 20 and 22 because they are the Army, Navy, and Air. You know, we don't have to repeat that.
Right.
So my amendment would be to delete those 3 lines.
Okay, very good. Any discussion? And just so I'm making sure we're covered, and that'll include Civil Air Patrol since they're auxiliary of the Air Force. We say Air Force, therefore they're covered. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I 100% agree with Colonel Smith's assessment on this. And to be honest with you, again, this was, I don't want to call it complete boilerplate language because Ms. Jarvis actually cleaned up a lot. But the language of the reserve and auxiliary component thereof did come from the DOD. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's superlative, and I agree with Senator Pappas. Just striking it works for me.
Yeah, we don't need the Pentagon telling us what to do, right? All right.
They do enough of that.
Yeah, okay. So any further discussion on this amendment? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Any further discussion or amendments on this bill? Okay, let's do a roll call vote.
Senator Brennan. Aye. Senator Furphy.
Aye.
Senator Kolb. Senator Pappas. Chairman Boner. 5 ayes.
There are 3 co-sponsors. I didn't know if you wanted one of them to carry it, but if the good chairman wants to do it, that's great.
We'll do it, yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, Representative, welcome to Senate Transportation. Please proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman. Members of the committee, I bring you House Bill 160, very simple little bill. It's kind of a no-brainer if you ask me. We were working on another bill talking about the veteran's designation on a driver's license. And it occurred to me that over the last 25 years or so, several times I've tried to join an organization or get a discount someplace. They'd asked me to go find my DD-214, I had to go home, open up the gun safe, drag the thing out, take the little onion skin down there and present it. As you are all aware, if you present your DD-214 to the Driver's License Bureau and you are a under honorable discharge veteran, they'll give you a designation of a V, which will be able to read veteran here shortly. And so all this thing says is that if you go someplace where they need to know, are you an honorably discharged veteran, and you show them your driver's license with that V on there, it counts the same thing. You don't have to go back and find the DD-214. I did speak with the former county treasurer because I had a little question about the veterans exemption. And yes, if you go apply for that, you will have to bring your DD-214 because it specified certain terms of service. And that is taken care of on page 2, paragraph B. With that, I would stand for questions.
Thank you for this nice, concise little bill. Any questions, committee? Okay, good job. Any further public comment?
Mr. Chairman, Chris Smith again from the Military Department. We support this bill in some ways. In talking with some of my brethren, I wish we had thought about it sooner. So we're very much in support of this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks. Any questions for the Military Department? Okay. Why not? You're good. Okay, sounds good. Okay, do we have anybody online? Okay. Anybody else in the room? Any questions for YDOT? Folks? No. Okay. All right, public comment is closed. What's your pleasure, committee? Moved by Senator Kolb. Any discussion? Amendments? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote.
Senator Brennan? Senator Furphy? Senator Kolb? Senator Pappas? Chairman Boner? 5 ayes.
Okay, Representative Pendergraph, who would you like to floor manage it?
There's one on here. There's one on here.
I would also, one last comment.
Mm.
It just does apply to the airport.
Oh, man, good thing we have definitions and statutes, but yeah. Good to know. Senator Kolb, do you want to take it or? Okay, cool.
Because he likes easy bills.
Right, yeah.
I like super easy.
I like those, like
Those I know
20,
about.
I like, yeah, I like the 20-minute explanation, so yeah. Okay, any further discussion, committee? Okay, we've got 4 more bills in our committee right now. We could have up to 3 additional today, depending on what the House does. So, you know, it's something that I'm confident we can get done in about 3 more meetings, and so we'll see how it goes. So, all right, we probably not really planning on having a meeting on Friday. Next one will probably be next Monday. So, okay, cool. Thanks, folks.